Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Hope you're doing well out there. If you guys could subscribe, that'd be great, and appreciate you stopping by. So, today was a bit of an unexpected news drop on Miami Heat land, as it was something that I think a lot of Heat fans thought was buried and behind them apparently isn't. And it's interesting, this guy is almost gone, other than if you're throwing him in some trade machines. He's almost gone as the unspoken man all offseason. Nobody's really touched the topic. Nobody's really spoken about where the path goes for this guy as far as the team is concerned. And that is, of course, regarding Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier. We really haven't heard much from Terry. We know that he was, it seemed like, off in France, I think, at one point this offseason with Tyler Hero. Maybe it was England, somewhere in Europe. But the reason we're bringing up Terry Rozier today is something that we thought was done apparently isn't. Because if you don't remember, it was about a month ago, Shams Charania was on the Pat McAfee show and had said that, you know, they were talking about the gambling scandal. I think this was because the Malik Beasley stuff was going on. And Shams Charania came out on that episode of the Pat McAfee show and basically said, he made it sound like, oh, we're good.
Terry Rozier, as of right now, it has been cleared. I mean, he finished the season with Miami. There's really nothing really active as of right now with him.
That's good. That's good news.
The NBA did. Yeah. NBA spokesman Mike Bass did give a statement to me yesterday. He said that the league is cooperating with the federal prosecutors. So
it was just like, oh, okay, he's cleared as of right now. I mean, I guess there's some wiggle room there from Shams Charania, but I think we were all under the impression that Terry Rozier was going to be in the clear. There wasn't going to be any findings, that they had done their investigation. Now, mind you, Terry Rozier was already investigated by the league with this scandal when this whole thing broke this year. And remember, they couldn't speak about it. They were regarding it to his lawyer, and the Heat were going to default to the statement of the NBA. But the NBA had already they hadn't investigated this matter. It wasn't until the feds came in and investigated. Federal investigators came in and investigated Terry Rozier, who was investigated for some suspicious activity in regards to a game where I believe when he was with the Hornets, he got injured, and they were wondering, I guess, if there was something nefarious at hand. Now, if you guys haven't been following, this has obviously kicked up a little bit more dust since the offseason. And another story that was tied to the Miami Heat in a weird way, because it ended up being the replacement plan for one of the other teams affected, and that was in regards to Piston sharpshooter Malik Beasley, who was about to cash in on a pretty lucrative mid-level deal for $40+ million. This whole thing comes out that apparently he also is being investigated for manipulation on games. And so Malik Beasley all of a sudden thinks that he's going to get this big-time deal. He doesn't, and the Pistons end up going and getting Duncan Robinson from the Miami Heat for Simone Fontecchio. And Duncan signs the $40+ million deal. Now, only 1 year of it's really guaranteed, but they had basically replaced Malik Beasley. And then a bunch of stuff had come out about Malik Beasley, a lot of money that's owed, paychecks that were held up and taken and withdrawn from, money that's owed to dentists, barbers, landlords. There's a lot of stuff in like the Detroit papers. So all that being said is, okay, this one seems maybe got a little bit more heat to it than the Rozier thing, and it certainly is a player that has more standing than somebody like Jonte Porter, who of course was banned for life recently. Well, today there was an episode of Pablo Torre Finds Out, a fantastic podcast for those who haven't checked it out. Pablo probably on this show has gotten the most coverage for what he's done with Bill Belichick and the young squeeze that he's with. But he did a story today with Amin Al-Hassan and Tom Haberstroh, who used to cover the Miami Heat on the Heat Index, big stats guy, and a longtime NBA reporter. Mina Hassan's background is, basketball host, but used to work in the Suns front office, frequented on the Levitard show. But today they were discussing this Malik Beasley story. Like the root of it was Malik Beasley, because apparently there was some Twitter user who had predicted Malik Beasley was going to get caught up in all of this and did it months ago. But from the Heat standpoint, I'm not going to talk too much about the Malik Beasley thing because it really isn't relevant to the Heat right now. But the jumping off point for all of this was back on the time when the Terry Rozier news happened. So Haberstroh goes on today, and he goes on with he's talking about this whole.
This news broke.
Excuse me, jumped the gun on that one. He goes on the show today, and they're discussing this situation, and he drops a pretty interesting bomb in there that's like, hey, I know it's Shams reported that Terry Rozier is good, but he's not been cleared yet.
So Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier, who's under contract with the Heat as we speak, he became the second player after Jonte Porter to be publicly identified as a part of this federal investigation into sports betting. And what I'm told is, contrary to Shams Charania's reporting, is that Terry Rozier has not been cleared of any wrongdoing, only that his name came up in the existing federal investigation.
What? What do you mean that he hasn't been cleared? And this is just like, so this is still a thing? And I don't really know. It's like, there's probably not many people in the league who are like, Terry Rozier, who cares? But you have to realize, like, as for Heat fans, for the organization, this is right now looked upon as like probably one of the worst trades the franchise has ever made. But also, when this news broke, it was almost comedic to hear something like that. Because while Terry Rozier came off of last year, his year ended abruptly. He looked like he was starting to find his way. He then suffers this neck injury, this mysterious neck injury, where all of a sudden he can't play. And it's just like the season was over. He never could come back. And we're just like, all right. And so you start seeing him rev up for the season. And the Heat are going to go into this next year with Tyler Hero, Terry Rozier. And Terry Rozier comes out and just has a colossally awful season. Awful. Like one of those situations where you're watching this guy and you're like, this is potentially the worst basketball player in the league who gets as much time as he did. And the Miami Heat were watching this guy go out there torpedoing games. All right. A man who, for his career, has been a pretty viable offensive option, looked like the bottom, like at times a bottom summer league roster guy last year. Inexplicably bad. And then when this story comes out, you're all just like, what do you mean? And it just kind of has to get swept under the rug because, well, he can't do anything about it. The feds are investigating him, and the Heat can't really say anything about it. He's not saying anything about it. But at least when this Shams thing came out, you were like, oh, all right, well, I guess that's in the clear. Cool. Because, look, to give Terry a little bit of grace, while he lost his job last year, while his contract is, not like the biggest albatross in the league. He's going into an expiring year, but it's not nothing. And all anybody's thought is like, hey, can this be used as salary filler for anybody in the league? But at least you thought, you know what? All right, if he's cleared, maybe he finds his stride again. This is a talented man. How can it just go like that? But you'd watch some of these games last year, and you think about that Cavs game, you're just like, this is on purpose? This is a basketball player doing this on purpose? Or is this this is a guy doing this by accident? He just sucks this bad? Or is this done on purpose? So, anyway, so Tom mentions that. Barry Jackson then tweets that out, that this story is not over with, and that here was the tweet from Barry today to discuss where we were at with the whole thing, because he then says and mentions the Shams tweet. Shams said something not totally clear a month ago that led some people to believe he was reporting that federal investigation of Terry Rozier involving gambling had stopped and the matter was closed. Pablo Torre reports this week that the federal investigation of Rozier remains open and has not been cleared. There have been no charges filed against Rozier. A previous NBA investigation uncovered no wrongdoing by the Heat point guard. And then minutes later, Chris Haynes, he comes out and he puts like the breaking news graphic with it. And it just flat out just goes, Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier has not been cleared of any wrongdoing and remains under federal investigation on a potential gambling probe, league sources tell me. So he's basically telling you the Tom Haberstroh report. But the point is, this wasn't, just for if you just thought like, hey, Tom's throwing something out there in the podcast, one of the more credible guys out there, and Chris Haynes, is also putting his name to it. And, so genuinely, okay, you had a guy who you traded for, and it's gone down now as one of the worst trades that the team's ever done, right? You don't really seem like you got a spot for him next year, right? You've traded for Norman Powell. You signed Davion Mitchell to an extension. You drafted a point guard. You have a rising two guard who's playing well in the summer league. And then you have Terry Rozier, who, by the way, Eric Spoelstra did a 17-ish, 16, 17-minute press conference this week. Was asked well by all the guys. I'm not blaming anybody who covered, because I thought everybody covering the team did a bang-up job. But he was not asked. He was asked about nearly every player, maybe except for Bam Adebayo. But any player that he wasn't asked about, he basically brought up unsolicited. Like, never, I think, was asked about Bam Adebayo, but was like brought up unprompted that we're leaning into Bam. Literally every player was talked about. Jaime, Pella, Kevin Love, Duncan Robinson, the Kalel Ware, of course, we know that was the big thing. Jovic, Wiggins. Wiggins was brought up unsolicited. Never asked about Wiggins, just brought up Wiggins. Maybe Davion Mitchell wasn't asked about, but Norm Powell, obviously, Matt. But Terry Rozier, I don't believe he was asked about it. Pat Riley wasn't asked about him. Eric Spoelstra wasn't asked about him, didn't bring him up. And it just feels like the Heat have just been like, even the Wiggins thing, which was like, okay, it was a bit of a mystery. You got reports this week. We're moving on with Wiggins. They're praising Wiggins. He's coming in. But they do have this situation with Terry where it's like, well, what are we going to do? What are we doing here? Right? Because it's not only that you've already made roster moves to show you don't believe in this guy anymore, which is justifiable. And while the worst of it is over because the Heat already pulled the plug on him last year, and by all accounts, he was an awesome dude in the locker room, a great teammate, a great guy, not a problem. We're supposed to go into another year with this issue not being resolved? Because I'm not accusing Terry Rozier of any wrongdoing, okay? But the three people involved in this, one of them's out of the league, one of them doesn't have a contract right now, and the third one's still on a roster. And the guy who is still on a roster, he didn't play nearly as good as Malik Beasley did last year. And played so bad that fans are sitting here looking on Twitter and they're like, this guy has to be on the take. I'm not saying that he is. I'm clear. I'm not saying that Terry Rozier is on the take. I'm just telling you, Heat fans were watching him last year and being like, he's playing so bad, he has to be on the take. Because I've seen that guy be awesome at basketball, and what the hell is this? And you're telling me a month ago, it's cleared, Shams. And now I'm finding out, not cleared, still under investigation, not cleared of any wrongdoing. To an issue that feels like it's kind of only getting bigger. Like, we had this situation with one incident, and now we have, it was some journeyman player who was a brother of a very good player, but was like a 10-day guy. Then it molds into Terry Rozier, kind of a good player, makes a very good living, and is handsomely paid. May also be, he's investigated for this. And now we have another guy who just lost a $40 million contract over it. What did he do about that? And I don't know what the answer is because, I guess the Heat, barring any, I'd imagine the Heat are just going to run out the clock on his deal. I can't imagine they're going to pull a Lowry again and be like, we have another first-round pick to get him out of here. That's basically what happened to Kyle Lowry. And Kyle Lowry wasn't under investigated for anything other than, I guess, being cranky that he lost his starting role. This is like, hey, it's already downhill. But the damage is also, like, the damage feels like it's done. Are the Heat, with this lingering, going to do anything about this? Like, I imagine the Heat are trying to find somebody to take Terry Rozier. Good luck. Now, here's the other thing. Okay, let's say in a situation, the Heat could trade for, let's just make it LeBron, right? And you'd want to match Terry and Andrew Wiggins' salaries together. The Lakers want that on them now? Oh, the guy who's not cleared of federal investigation? That's who who's taking him? Who's taking him? So you have no role for him, okay? He fell off a cliff last year, and maybe you were hoping for a bounce back by some small measure, even though probably not based on the moves. It doesn't seem, coach doesn't even talk about him. You traded for another guard. You drafted another guard. Doesn't feel, you extended another guard. Doesn't feel very much like they see Terry Rozier in their future. And he still has this hanging over him. So, like, and I don't know, because I don't think you don't get a contract wiped off the books for, because a guy's getting looked into. I think he would actually have to be suspended for life. I think that has to be the answer. So are he going to get that answer before? Are he going to get an answer? Because the league said he did nothing wrong, right? Like, the league said he did nothing wrong. But if the feds come back and they say that he did, does then he get the Jontay Porter treatment? I don't know. I'm just is everybody just very confused about this situation? Confused and miffed? Because, Shams being like, yeah, baby, it's all good. Maybe he did it. Yeah, did he do it very casually and throw it out there? That's kind of a casual, look, I get it. Shams is talking all the time. This is the problem with being on ESPN. When you're on a network nobody watches, respectfully, it's one thing. You could figure, most people are going to you for your tweets. Now, you're riffing with the McAfee guys. You're on a podcast. You're a personality growing. You're getting into beefs with agents. You're having a good time, baby. But when you're that looked upon as that credible, people hold on to every word you say. And for something that serious to slip out and it turned out to be the complete opposite is pretty nuts. So I'm just sitting here on a Tuesday night, confused, wondering what the hell does this mean? Does this mean, does it mean anything? I don't even know. Does this mean just well, if it's not concluded, he just suits up for the Heat next year? But when Chris Haynes, okay, Tom's throwing it out there on a pod and saying, it's not cleared yet. And then that makes the rounds. And then it gets another reporter coming out there and saying, yup, league hasn't cleared him. No wrong, hasn't been found of hasn't been cleared of any wrongdoing. Has not been cleared of any wrongdoing and remains under federal investigation. Whew. And all those lowlights last year. Because here's the thing, if he just stinks, maybe we've gotten to the point where people are like, the damage is done. Who cares, Tobes? But if he goes out there and he looks like a guy who's never been a competent basketball player, which he has, he's been a very talented, very good basketball player before. That's what's crazy. How do you not look at that with this and be like, is something amiss here? Because this guy was very good, and then all of a sudden looks like he doesn't belong in the league. Malik Beasley, also very good, has some strength. Now, it's a little bit weird watching the Pablo Torre episode. The Malik Beasley thing is a little confusing because while he has a lot of shady dealings and money owed, he also doesn't seem to match. Some of the games that are in question don't match with the action. Kind of similar to Terry, where it's like, hey, he got hurt in that game with the game that's being under question, but why he's even being brought in connection, you don't know what individuals get their tentacles to these guys. I don't know. So that's why, it's almost like the mystery of it and the questions around it make it all the more confusing. And I got to tell you, the one thing I'll say for the Heat, okay, as much as Terry may have been an awesome dude last year, all right, which is, you could see him on the sidelines supporting his teammates, all that stuff, right? And maybe he can do that again for a year, because if you're making $26 million, it's a good living. But the Miami Heat already talked last year about clarity, the whole, we want something over our head. And well, yeah, he's not Jimmy Butler in that he's going to make things uncomfortable for his teammates. It's still an uncomfortable mystery that's now still hanging over your team. Do the Heat want that? Do they just tell him, we couldn't find a team for you, no one wants to trade for you, just stay home? Something like that. Pay. Now, I know they didn't do that with Jimmy last year, and it seems to be like a cardinal rule for the team, but I don't know. Because I feel like the Heat want to go into this year with as clean a slate as possible. And with that trade not working out and all the baggage and mystery surrounding it, what do you do with this? I'm just asking. I don't have an answer for it right now. But when I saw this, I was like, wait a minute. What? Still? This is still going on? You lied to me, Shams.